You hear so many no's, and for me, when someone tells me no, it actually means that it hasn't been done before.
Hey everyone, it's Rebecca. You're listening to Superwomen. Today's podcast is with Kat Schneider, the founder and CEO of Ritual Vitamins. In this conversation, we get nitty-gritty on what led her to start the company.
I started Ritual when I was 4 months pregnant because I couldn't find a prenatal vitamin that I trusted in the market.
Why she was depleted as a mom, what she felt like moms need as key ingredients that we can actually utilize.
I think none of us know what we're doing in the early stages of building businesses. I actually think my strength as a leader isn't knowing everything. It's actually finding people that are like the best at what they do and surrounding myself with them.
And that the vitamin industry isn't always honest. And so what to look for, how to take stuff and not be completely overwhelmed and feeling like you have nowhere to start.
People that do have a pretty robust supplement routine and taking lots of powders and lots of plant-based ingredients, you think you're doing something great, but you actually have no idea the accumulation of heavy metals that you're consuming.
We also go deep on business, how she manages it all.
The things that have made me kind of thrive in the life that I want to live, which is having a meaningful business and career and really deep connections with my kids and my husband and my family, are actually rituals. How do you elevate a routine to a habit, to a ritual, and something that you're really committing to every single day, but it like brings you so much joy?
I'm Rebecca Minkoff, and this is Superwomen. Each week, inspiring women are interviewed to uncover the unexpected journeys, the challenges, and the unwavering spirit that makes them powerful. Get ready to be motivated by stories of resilience and discover the keys to unlocking your own potential. Kat, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's so nice to see you again.
You too. I felt like we saw each other when you first launched. You had that beautiful, I think you had a beautiful dinner in Soho and everyone was oohing and awing over the ritual. So I'm just curious, like tell me about your selfish journey, which I love that you have said is selfish, and what led you to develop this amazing line.
I love that you reminded me of being selfish. It's a reminder that I needed today. It's something I don't think I knew in the beginning, and I've learned to be more selfish as time has gone on. And, and now I have 3 kids and a 9-figure business. So you always have to remind yourself day to day to take time for yourself, or none of this really works. But yeah, my journey started, I was 4.5 when I moved to the US. I was a refugee from Ukraine, came here with nothing, $50 in a suitcase. We lived in a welfare hotel in Brooklyn, and my parents barely spoke English, learned English. My mom ended up working on Wall Street, and my dad actually ended up being our first entrepreneurial person in the family. And he really inspired me. They both inspired me to chase after my dreams and know that you can do anything and build something with nothing if you're truly passionate about it. And I always knew, I think since I was a little child, that I wanted to start something or do something. But, it took me close to 30 years to really find the confidence and also find that passion, or find the thing that would keep me up at night where I couldn't stop thinking about anything else and nothing else mattered. So that's kind of where my journey started. And I started Ritual when I was 4 months pregnant because I couldn't find a prenatal vitamin that I trusted in the market.
You didn't like the fluorescent neon pink ones that they give you at the regular doctor's office that have like FDC5 and fake fish oil in them?
Yeah, I did not like those. On top of that, I was vegan at the time, so I was very confused why I was told, to start avoiding tuna during pregnancy, which I wasn't even consuming. And then, seeing that the ones that were recommended had fish oil and were actually lacking in key nutrients that women needed during one of the most critical stages of their lives. And I knew that we deserved better, especially during this life stage. And so I quit my job, uncertain of the future. I think similar to my, parents' story, although I had a little bit more cushion, my husband and I we're both entrepreneurs. So we both started businesses at the same time and kind of just risked it all.
You both quit your jobs at the same time?
He is a serial entrepreneur. And so he started his new company the same time that I started mine.
What do you think gave you guys both the bravery, like first time parent, quitting your job, both starting a business? Like, where did you get that either naivety or confidence from, or both?
I think it's both. It, for me, I had a really interesting career. I worked on Wall Street as well and at Lehman Brothers, which ended up being the biggest bank failure in history. And then I ended up being the head of innovation for Universal Music, helping bring Spotify to the US. And then I ran a fund for Troy Carter, investing in dozens of startups, managing his fund, everything from Uber, Dropbox, Warby Parker, Spotify. And I'd been surrounded by these mostly male entrepreneurs, my whole career who were doing big things, who were dreaming big. And there was this little voice inside my head always, like, you're not old enough. You're a woman. You need a co founder. You need money. You can't do this. Millions of things I can't even remember at the time. And there was something that happened while I was pregnant where those voices kind of just went away and allowed me to really tap into, I don't know, a creative and more confident part of myself. And also, I think because I knew what I wanted to create, which is to set new standards in the supplement industry for pregnant people and all people, didn't exist. And I knew that I was so determined to do it, and I couldn't stop thinking about anything else. So a combination of kind of those voices going away and that deep passion and those two things just really aligning kind of gave me that push, that really push that I needed. And even though I had been a venture capitalist and was surrounded by these amazing entrepreneurs my whole career, I still didn't have it in me to go and do this. I was inspired, but I still lacked the confidence.
I always have to credit women who are either pregnant or just having had a baby and starting a business. That is the most intense thing. Like, I'll never forget, I met someone who's now one of my best friends, Michelle Grant. She was on a panel and just launching Lively. And I looked at her and I was like, I don't think I could have ever started my business while pregnant or having just had a baby. Like, it was already hard enough without a kid. So, how the fuck did you start a business and have a baby and raise money pregnant? Like, how did you get through that? And what was that time period like?
I started Ritual nearly 10 years ago, and I've had three babies since then. And I would say each time has been challenging in its own way, but I wouldn't trade it in any sense in the world. I think now having three girls, sorry, I'm tearing up. It's really hard to talk about, but
Yeah.
I'm sure you can relate. Like having three girls that are now older, 5, 7, and 9, and they understand what I'm doing and sorry, are actually inspired by it is
Yeah.
like this extra fuel that when you feel like you're running on empty, it keeps you going. And what you're doing is beyond worth it. So I would say, I talked to a lot of parents, right? Having your first is probably the hardest. It's the biggest shock. So I'd say that was probably the most challenging. But I think at an early time in Ritual's history, I've learned to surround myself with people that were way smarter than I was in the areas that I still needed to do a lot of learning. And I needed to do that early on because I couldn't do it all myself, because I was pregnant, because I was postpartum, because I was breastfeeding for years and trying to take care of myself and a growing human. So I think it taught me the lesson of surrounding yourself with really incredible leadership people and really asking for help year one. That's an invaluable lesson that I probably would have taken me a little bit of time to learn had I not had a kid out the gate. And I think
Yeah.
because I needed to rely on others because I couldn't, even the name of the podcast, where we're not super people, we're just regular people who have passions and ideas and I think that surrounding yourself with great leaders in all the areas where you still have a lot of room to grow early on, being pregnant and having three kids early on in Ritual's, history pushed me to do that a lot faster than I ever would have. So I hired a leading scientist within the first few months of starting the business. I hired incredible people in marketing and operations and still really close with all of them today. I think I would credit a lot of the people that kind of helped and surrounded Ritual in the early days for the success that we've had to date.
Do you think that a lot of women suffer from the if I hire someone that knows more than me, maybe they'll think I'm stupid? Or like I knew right in the beginning, like you, I need to hire people that know more than me because I'm not the expert. But I do find some women are like afraid to admit they don't know something. For a while, I was afraid to admit, especially in like the money raising space or at our board meetings with investors, like that I didn't know certain terms. Like I was like, I should probably know this by now, and I don't know what this means. What would you say to women who are scared to admit that or say they don't know something?
I think it's important, especially early on, to admit what you don't know again so you can find people and talent to fill the gaps where are needed. I think if you don't, then you're in trouble.
Yeah.
There's definitely an element of fake it till you make it, but I think that's really selective, you know? I think none of us know what we're doing in the early stages of building businesses. I mean, I knew that I wanted to invest in clinical studies in every single one of our products, and I didn't know where to start. So I knew that I needed to hire leading scientists to help me understand how that works and what universities to partner with and what the studies would look like. And I think if I was like, yeah, I know what I'm doing, these studies probably wouldn't be landmark studies. They wouldn't be really, I think, transforming the industry and changing how people think about what they're putting in their bodies. So I don't know, everyone's different. But for me, like, I actually think my strength as a leader isn't knowing everything. It's actually finding people that are like the best at what they do and surrounding myself with them.
Yeah. One thing I found around pregnancy, which was eye opening, was the first thing that made me say I'm not listening to the traditional system is I watched The Business of Being Born. I was not pregnant at the time, my friend was. And we watched it, and it sort of broke open this questioning mindset of wait, I can't just listen to my doctor or the hospital because they don't actually know best. And I find when it comes to supplements, for instance, like the joke I made at the beginning, giving, your doctor just giving you this piece of shit that actually has more chemicals and binders in it than you need. Or let me just go to the drugstore and get the Walmart vitamin folic acid when you should be taking methylated folate. So for women that just don't know or are told by people who are just being regurgitating, whoever's paying them the most, how can a woman find reliable sources, let's say in supplements, obviously by Ritual, but like how does she begin to know how to know? Because to me, it's very clear now, but I meet so many women are like, I just didn't know. My doctor told me. And I'm like, I can't believe we're in this society still where people do that. But that's my own rant. What would you say?
Yeah, and I love that you brought up methylated folate. I think it was one of the early findings that I had starting Ritual that over a third of people have a genetic variation that they can't properly utilize folic acid, which is in most multivitamins with the synthetic form of folate. And yet, most multivitamins have folic acid, which becomes accumulated in the body and is not great. So there's a lot of things to unpack here for sure. It's a big topic. I would say the first is realizing, medical system aside, the category, the supplement industry has gone from 4,000 to 90,000 supplements in
What?
the last 30 years. It's exploded. Wellness is everywhere. That's great. People care about how they feel and they want to feel good. So there's been a massive explosion in the category, and yet there haven't been any major updates to regulations. And so this is, I think, a really big area where consumers like you and I have to become our own federal agencies and walk through the aisle or process what someone is recommending online and both in the medical system and say, hey, is this safe? and is it effective? And I would say those are the two filters that we look at products and we look at ingredients at Ritual. Is this safe? Is it going to hurt me? Is it effective? Does it work? And the way that we address that is through traceability of traceable science and traceable sourcing. So for us, it's having clinical studies on every single one of our products by 2030. I think right now the idea that your products are clinically studied, there's no requirement for that. There's also no unified language around the term clinically studied. So as a consumer, when you're looking through that efficacy lens, I would be skeptical if a product is science-based or clinically backed. I would ask yourself and the company, like, what does that mean? Because what we're seeing is that products have, they may have clinically studied ingredients, but they're not even in the dosages that are in those clinical studies. And a lot of times those clinical studies are not on humans either.
Right.
So the holy grail is having a product that has a clinical study on the entire product. We just completed a clinical study on our prenatal vitamin. It's the number one prenatal in the US and the only leading one with a clinical study. So that's the efficacy piece. The safety piece is a whole other beast. I think this is what this is what propelled me to start the company in the first place, is like, how do you know if your products are safe? And that's why it was important for me early days to start a traceable supply chain so people could see where the ingredients were coming from in the world and why they were there. Unfortunately, there's a lot of issues in supplements, especially when it comes to heavy metals. There are currently no health protective measures with the FDA when it comes to heavy metals. So people that do have a pretty robust supplement routine and taking lots of powders and lots of plant-based ingredients, you think you're doing something great, but you actually have no idea the accumulation of heavy metals that you're consuming. So from a safety perspective, I would urge people to look at third-party certifications. Third-party testing, amazing. Third-party certification is validation that, one great certification is Clean Label Project. They test for over 200 environmental toxins and contaminants like heavy metals, like glyphosate. And so the combination of looking for certifications and being a skeptic when it comes to science and clinicals, I think that combination will really help you understand which supplements to take and which ones may be safe and which ones are effective.
I'm so happy you broke that down because I think it can be overwhelming and you don't know what brand and you tend to buy the ones that are advertising to you most. So I think that's helpful. How would you say, as a mom and with the growth of your business to nine figures, like, how do you keep your barriers now? And how did you have to evolve those barriers in order to make this integration work between life and kids and work?
Yeah, I would say I still am figuring it out in a lot of ways. I think it's kind of ironic. I was thinking about it this morning that the things that have made me kind of thrive in the life that I want to live, which is having a meaningful business and career and really deep connections with my kids and my husband and my family, are actually rituals. Like, how do you elevate a routine to a habit, to a ritual, and something that you're really committing to every single day, but it brings you so much joy. I feel like having those, with the limited time that you have with your kids and your family when you're running a business are so important. And finding those things that make you, better regular and you look forward to is really important. And then for me, on a personal level, working out has become a really important non-negotiable ritual for me. I'm really into strength training. I'm really into Pilates, and I'm into, yoga and all. I'm just more of a student of fitness. And the more I learn and the more types of classes I'm taking, I'm just wow, this is so interesting. I get to, for an hour a day, get to learn something new. And that is really exciting and feeds my mind and my body.
Yeah.
So that's really something that brings me a lot of joy and kind of helps me integrate and be super present for our team, for my husband, for my kids, and helps me have a little bit of a grounding. I would say I didn't prioritize that early on, right? Because I'm oh my gosh, I got to get up in the morning and I got to do this and manage that. And I'm whoa, okay. I'm not doing anything till 9. I mean, other than taking my kids to school,
Yeah.
right? But I have an hour between then and that's like really dedicated to me every day. And I don't care what like pops up, that's not going to happen. And creating that barrier of selfishness has been really, really like a non-negotiable. And I think the other piece is really nurturing my body through food. I have a book coming out in a couple months, and I think I get a lot of joy and also like integrating my kids into cooking and figuring out how to make things that you would normally buy from scratch and kind of going back to whole food and away from ultra processed everything that's surrounding us. So that's actually a really important ritual for our family.
I felt like for so many years, I cared that people saw that I was in the office first and like setting the tone. So I didn't work out, or if I did, it was twice a week, and then I'd walk through the back hallway so that no one would see me enter at 9:30 a.m. Woo! And I'm just like, fuck, why did I care? Like that was from now I'm religious about it. It is my ritual in the mornings. And I'm like, who fucking cares? Like, it's what sets us up to thrive and be our best self, you know?
What do you do for your workouts?
I do strength training 5 days a week with a little cardio, like a Stairmaster, if it's available, if no one's on it. But I used to run, and I used to think that by running, my body would change, and it didn't never change. And then I was like, newsflash, let's try something different after 5 years of running and hoping your body changes postpartum. So that's what's made the most difference. And for the perimenopausal ladies listening in, it also is what we need to do as we hit perimenopause because everything, yeah, starts changing.
Agreed.
Yeah. So where do you see, like, you mentioned the book coming out. Can you share the title of it?
It's called Help Yourself, and it's a guide for the new rules of wellness and has everything from how to sleep, how to feel better and have less stress for your skin, and also just baseline nutrition, everything from what water filters to buy to what pans are safest, recipes, what supplements to take for your skin, just all the things kind of debunking myths and leaning into more science and rituals.
I love that. I researched pans the other night for so fucking long. I wanted to like kill someone. I was like, I landed on Caraway, which I hope is approved.
I love that brand. I'll send you a screenshot of my guide.
Okay, okay, good. Okay. And then, so if someone is overwhelmed by this whole process, even I sometimes I'm like, oh my God, I got to do the red light, take the vitamins, make the powders. I have like 12 powders I take. Now my friend is toting 8 sleep, like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, to someone who, again, like, this is not new to me. Health and wellness are not new to me. But for someone who's listening who it is new, like, how do you take the overwhelm out of it?
Yeah, as someone who's in this space every day, I would say in the past it has been even more overwhelming just seeing, all the latest research and all the latest ingredients and so and so's doing this and this person's doing that. And an interesting story for me is, and I think the moral of the story is I think it's important that we kind of go back to the basics and go back to what makes us feel good. Because I think if you kind of over engineer things or you're taking too many supplements or you're, like you said, you were running and you weren't feeling great or you weren't seeing results and maybe you're pushing yourself too hard, or I think there's kind of like beauty in going back to really like basic foundations and doing those things really well versus just chasing after the latest supplement or the latest powder or the latest sleep mattress. And you can feel great, I think, doing really simple things really well. And so that's kind of, I know that's like boring advice, but I would say, I remember being, my wedding and I was like taking all these different powders and supplements. And it was like the day before my wedding and I was just throwing up because I had literally poisoned myself.
Oh my
Like I
God.
had poisoned myself. I don't know why, but I think it is because it was probably way too many like heavy metals in the powders. I wasn't aware of like, testing at the time. And I think as I've gone through pregnancies and now kind of headed towards perimenopause, I would say it is those kind of really baseline things that if I don't take vitamin D and I'm deficient in vitamin D, no amount of powders or things are going to make me feel better. And so it's like, what are the gaps that I have in my diet? How do I fill those, whether it's omega 3s or vitamin D? How do I drink enough water from my body and make sure that I'm hydrated? What's the right fitness routine for me where I'm not killing myself? I'm not, over stimulating my cortisol, where I feel integrated and enjoying the physical movement. For me, that is like 6 days a week. So maybe it is a lot but I have those rests in between. And yeah, I think it's really kind of simplifying things down before you add all these crazy things that you might see other people doing. I think it's like finding the right, water filter, or the best water for your body, figuring out what is like your sleep routine, what is actually like keeping you up at night, and what helps you like unwind before bed. I wish I had a sexier answer, and I do a lot of crazy stuff, but I would say like it's really easy to get trapped in this like wellness insanity that we're in right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't always have the sexiest answer. Sometimes it is stripping it back to basics. So that's probably what someone should do. Before we wrap, do you have advice that someone gave to you or that you've learned over the last 10 years that you'd love to pass on?
Yeah, my favorite saying, and I don't even remember if I came up with it or I stole it from someone, so if I did, please let me know, is to embrace the no's. It became one of our company values. I think early on and even throughout every day, there's so many roadblocks and people telling you, no, you can't do this, you can't manufacture it this way, you can't raise funding. You hear so many no's. And for me, it's when someone tells me no, it actually means that it hasn't been done before. So I look at every no as this really exciting opportunity because no one has done this before. And you get to be the first to like really do things this way. For young entrepreneurs and people starting out, like, don't be deflated by no's. Like, take them as that fuel to keep going and do something radically different.
I love that. I say that no is just the beginning of yes in all areas except dating.
Yeah, then you're like, red flag.
Red flag. Thanks for listening to today's episode. If you've enjoyed it, take a second to rate and review the show wherever you're tuning in. It really helps others find the podcast. You can follow me on Instagram at Rebecca Minkoff and at RM Superwomen, or for a slice into my personal life at Becky Minkoff. And don't forget to check out my book, Fearless, The New Rules for Unlocking Creativity, Courage, and Success. See you next week.